3, 2, 1. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Post Show. Well wait, this is the first episode. What am I talking about? Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Post Show. My name's Corey.
And I don't have to deal with thinking this. Yeah?
Jake?
Yeah?
I'm trying to introduce something new that we can do with the channel, and you're just crapping on it.
And you messed up the introduction, so you can't...
Yes, I did.
So you can't completely blame me.
Alright, well, anyways, so, the idea with these post shows is that if there's a topic that we talk about in a given week or a given episode that we want to talk a little bit more about, or it feels like we had some more ideas, and we just kind of like, well, most of the time it's me pushing things along. If we had stuff that we could talk about that would lead to like an interesting conversation, this is what this is going to be for. It's not going to be as fancy as the main episodes. The main episodes will be their own thing. The main thing with this is that it's just going to be us having a conversation and going with one topic. Once we're done talking about that topic, though, that'll be the episode. That way, it's like, you know, it's a bite-sized type thing, so if you can't listen to the full podcast, but you'd like to just hear our voices for whatever reason, you got these.
Yeah.
Nice, Jake. That was a good little addition there.
Voices, you can listen to this post show.
I felt my ears curl up under my headphones. Like, it was bad.
You can have fun with that audio. Or get rid of it. That's an option too.
It was like the equivalent of like having that one aunt that has that very high-pitched voice that just like is incredibly grating to hear during like Thanksgiving. Like,
Thank you for reminding me that my voice never hit puberty.
Jake.
Yeah?
Your voice has been in a constantly in puberty.
Thanks.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Anyways, so the topic...
Neither do I, but okay.
The topic for this post show is actually going to be RWBY. We talked a little bit last episode of the main podcast about Volume 7. And if you haven't listened to that discussion, a link in the description for that episode, as well as maybe a little whatever the like icon thing that like comes up in the top right of the video, like here, we'll have it there. But yeah, we talked a little bit about Volume 7, our thoughts on it, and one thing that actually I really enjoy about RWBY, like I rarely do things for the community, but I do enjoy a good theory. And so I found a couple of theories about like different characters, because we did talk about like the idea of like, is Crow the reason that in spoilers for RWBY Volume 7, Volume whatever, like
Spoilers for RWBY, just period.
Yeah, for the entire series. But yeah, we did talk about how like Crow could be responsible for Clover's death, like with his semblance, and kind of debated that for a bit. There is one theory that I found. I don't really know, like, again, I don't know if there's a lot of people that follow these. I don't know what. I found these online, and I thought they could lead to some interesting conversation. There are people speculating that because of that happening to Clover, Crow is going to spiral back into alcoholism and eventually understand why people would serve Salem and maybe even join her side. What do you think about that?
I don't know about that one. What are your thoughts on that? Like, what, like, supporting, like,
I mean,
was there other like supporting evidence for that?
The other evidence that they had was there's the increasing feeling of distance between him and like the rest of the group. How like they're becoming way more independent and they aren't really needing that like guidance figure. like throughout their journey, and Crow's like realizes that, and so he's keeping his distance, and he's like, you don't interrupt them when they have an idea or anything like that. And Clover was someone that he could go to where like he didn't necessarily need him, but he was like accepted to be around, like praised to be around, like that kind of thing. And so after losing that, Crow doesn't really feel like he can connect to anybody.
So because of that, they think he's going to join Salem.
They think that there will be some other events that happen that could cascade into it. Or maybe it's... I don't know.
You know what I think could be interesting? If Crow ended up joining Salem's side just so his bad luck could take effect. As like...
I didn't actually think about that.
As like an anti-hero. Like he's purposefully siding with them, knowing that like he can be like a literally a bad luck charm.
That's a good song from the OST.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could actually see that working pretty well, because like obviously the bad luck like semblance, as far as we know, can affect anyone within his vicinity. Maybe like because he would side with her, she would stumble during like, you know, an important fight or whatever, and give like the heroes the opportunity to get the upper hand.
Yeah.
Again though, this is like it's difficult to pull in either direction, because they don't really provide much evidence aside from the fact that Crow feels responsible for Clover's death. But yeah, I feel like there's more factors that could also play into it, with like the idea that like, you know, knowing that he sided with Tyrion to attack someone who once was his friend. Like the idea of like how his fighting style paired up with Tyrion's a little bit too well. Like that's another thing that made me think. But yeah, unless you have any other thoughts, I do have a couple other ones.
I mean, I guess just like tangent off of that and like round off some of like the theories involving Crow. I do like, I honestly do appreciate the headcanon of like why he's so good at unarmed combat. And I'm still skeptical of like how exactly his bad luck semblance functions in the universe.
Yeah, because they try to explain it.
They tried to explain it, and to me, it sounded very like invisible handy, of just kind of like the universe is trying to fuck with him. But correct me if I'm wrong, but in I think it was volume 5. When they were like stuck in the house for a lot of the volume, and there was the unarmed combat training between RWBY and Oscar. Ren interjected, and I forget exactly what he said, but he mentioned how semblances can be based off of like one's character, or there's been like debate that one's character is influenced by their semblance. So, I, like, they make it seem like Crow's semblance is, like, an invisible hand. I want to believe that it's more just, like, he has managed to just be unlucky and unfortunate just by, you know, chance. Like, he just happens to have a disposition where he sets himself up for bad things, as opposed to just, like, things magically happen that are bad around him.
Yeah, so it's like he assumes that things will go wrong, and when they do go wrong, it's not surprising? Or like...
Like, it's more... Like, again, with, like, Clover's death, like, that's not bad luck. That was just Crow making the wrong decision. Or, like, getting poisoned because he wasn't paying attention. Like, that's not necessarily a luck-based thing. He just let his guard down. So, like, And, like, there are some things that are harder to explain with that, like, the first time we see his semblance, where like the bartender's like glass falls off and shatters, or like a piece of firewood rolls out of the pit of the campfire in Volume 4, and things like that, but we can't really know how much of that is involved with, like, I mean, like, we can assume it's Crow's semblance, but, like, those could also be, like, a chance thing. But yeah, I want to believe, again, like, in a headcanon kind of way, that, like, it's just that Crow's unlucky, and that's kind of, like, his way of justifying it.
Yeah, where he just says that his semblance is, like, is just how it is.
Like, he blames, like, all of that on, like, his semblance. And actually, I had a question for you involving Clover's death.
Mm-hmm.
When Tyrion... So, Crow gets angry and says to Tyrion, "I'll kill you." And then Tyrion responds with, "You mean like how you killed Clover?"
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he was referencing the fact that Clover's blood was on his sword, or as a reference to Crow's semblance?
It's with the sword, 100%.
You think?
Because the whole thing is that is physical evidence that the authorities will see and be like, "Oh, that's your weapon. You killed him.
They
with
literally
me."
have a human lie detector. They just have to ask him, "Did you kill Clover?" Crow can say, "I didn't kill Clover, it was Tyrion," and he'll be telling the truth.
This is...
And Tyrion could know... Tyrion could know about his semblance through Raven, who like had connections with Salem and Cinder for like at least a brief time.
Okay, but my question that I extend past that is, if it is a question of, like, you know, having the human lie detector there, how exactly does her semblance work? Is it that it's just a lie detector that says yes or no? Or is it based off of information that she knows? If she was unconscious during that entire scuffle, how does she know, like, what happened? Would she be unable to give a clear answer?
If it was based on what she knew, then she wouldn't have been able to detect any of the truths that Ironwood was telling, or that Yang told her about the tower. So I think it has to do... I assume it acts similarly to, like, lie detector tests that we have in real life, where, like, it just kind of... I mean, the real life ones don't necessarily detect lies, they just detect things somewhat related to lying. But I think it's a similar kind of, like, it's a tell of character. That's what I'm assuming, because I don't think it's... Because I've kind of asked myself that too, in terms of, like, does it have to do with whether the character is telling the truth that they believe, or if it's, like, an objective truth? Like, when Yang said to Robin, like, what was it? It was, like, Ironwood's just trying to help everyone, and it said that that was true. Like, what if, like, that was just what she believed, and that's why it was true, but it could have been wrong if Ironwood wasn't actually doing what was best for the people, and just what, like, he was trying to do what was best for himself.
I definitely think it's sensed by the individual. It doesn't take, like, everything in it as a whole.
Yeah. Because
if it took everything as a whole, then, like...
objective truth would just be, like, OP, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you wouldn't even need the lamp to ask questions.
Yeah, and so the idea of Robin needing to physically, like, touch somebody in order to make sure that they're telling the truth or not, that's the thing that, like, limits it. And also, who's to say that it doesn't pick the objective truth, but just the truth that the person believes in?
Like, yeah, exactly.
If, because, like, the whole thing with, like, Ironwood promising to save the city of Mantle when it was green, like that was working out. But then in the back of his head, he always just had the idea of Atlas first. That's why he jumped to the idea of the plan once things fell apart. Like, was he just presenting that as the truth? And like the semblance didn't pick up on that?
I like to think that like her semblance functions as like an effective lie detector of that individual person, where it's not about like what they want to project, because if you remember when she did it with Ironwood on like the TVs and everything, like they specifically cut away from their hand holding when he was talking about how the tower was completed, so that like people would assume he's just telling the truth the whole time, and it's just like happening to cut to his face when it's actually him lying, with like the lie detector going like red or whatever the color would be off screen. And that's how they tricked Watts into thinking it was done. So like I like to think that it's not about like what you are presenting as the truth, and it just is like a lie detector for like that person with like, yeah.
Since you mentioned Watts, that actually segues into one theory that personally I feel like could become like prevalent in the next volume, depending on how Rooster Teeth wants to play their cards. Ironwood is under Watts's control. We never see Ironwood kill Watts. In fact, we see Watts locked in a cell at the end of the volume. What this theory like suggests is that since Ironwood is almost like, you know, more machine than man, and he runs off of Atlas code, like Arthur Watts, he's a genius. He would understand like the code if he got to look at it like that. And because of that, like in the fact that he had access to all of the Atlas like databases for a small period of time, he could have planted some kind of Trojan virus inside of Ironwood, which has made him act the way he did, which some people say explain why he would take Watts's bag into Atlas in order to carry out the message of Salem, because otherwise there wouldn't be much of a reason to take his briefcase.
No reason to take his briefcase. I mean, I feel like he would have just taken it as a way of just like confiscating like the goods that he had, because he was like thrown in prison. So like obviously they would like let him keep it.
Yeah, wouldn't you think he would check it though beforehand?
It's possible that was his plan, and then he found the chess piece on his desk.
It's hard to tell though with like a theory like that, because while there's the part of me that's like, I would love it if it turns out that like he's under like Watts' control, but for lack of better terms, he's under Salem's control right now. Like, she has got him exactly where she wants him, as far as like he's panicked, he's abandoning people, causing more divide among like, you know, Remnant, by just like being like, oh, I'm going to declare martial law, leave these people to die, save who I can in Atlas, and then like because of Salem being there, getting people killed in Atlas, like by his, you know, his selfish decisions, thus painting this once incredible leader as like a crazed dictator who will die on the hill.
I don't really think that's much of like Salem influence though. I think that's just him being a utilitarian, which he's kind of always been as a military man. Because like he's leaving the people of Atlas to die, or not Atlas, the people of Mantle to die, because he believes at this moment that if he were to send his troops and even like the Aesops and Team RWBY to like go and fight off Salem's forces, that they would just die in the process, so he's just trying to save who he can. Because like he's always been a tactician. And, like, I don't know how much you know about, like, utilitarianism, but he's, like, in a lot of ways, he's, like, the textbook definition of trying to do, like, the best for the most people. And not, like, wasting lives, trying to do the right thing that ends up leading to the worst outcome. Because, and I know a lot about utilitarianism because I kind of subscribe to that branch of philosophy, but also I've been learning about it in, like, my philosophy classes I've been taking, and it's a philosophy completely based on the outcomes, and not particularly on, like, the means of getting to those outcomes. And that's exactly what Ironwood's doing. He's thinking, like, okay, how can we, like, beat Salem, or at the very least not lose, so we have, like, a net positive at the end of the day, or a neutral, like, score in all of this. And to him, that's basically running. It's not about, like, fighting, like, you know, valiantly or honorably. It's not about, like, you know, this glorious death or anything. It's just, how do we, like, survive this? And that's what he's trying to do. It's very terrible, but it's very militaristic and very utilitarian.
Yeah, and like you said, that's always been his character. And I know because of the way that, like, RWBY is written and how the characters are written, they'll always want to save everybody. But I feel while I don't agree with a lot of things that Ironwood's doing, like, from this point forward, I can respect it.
Like, that,
I can't respect the fact that he tried to shoot a kid, but, like, you know.
I think Ironwood, like, obviously there's been, like, a lot of good writing this volume, but I personally think Ironwood is one of the best written characters. Because, like, he is worrying about all of the stuff that he should be worrying about, even though, as the audience, we know that there's no reason to, like, he mentioned, like, for all we know, Hazel could be here too. We know that he's probably not. But, like, that's a realistic belief he could have, since he knows that Salem has, like, planned a lot of this out already. And he doesn't know what she has planned, and doesn't know that, like, people think that, Cinder was dead, basically. Like, he doesn't know, like, any of that. So I feel like he's acting, like, very realistically, and he's not trying to be made out as, like, the hero by, like, the writers or anything, but he's a very, like, what he's doing makes sense for his position.
Legitimately, yeah, I agree. I think the best piece of I didn't get to say this during the podcast, but the best, like, character interaction or the best dialogue from this volume was when Ironwood snapped at Oscar in the the area where the vault is. Like, that argument that they had during the finale. I think that really showed the full transformation from, like we're friends or, like, we're not friends, we're, like, you know, heroes fighting a common enemy, to you're turning into my enemy, I can't trust you, like, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I've heard some complaints about, like, similarly for, like, the Aesops being too, like, for them being too militaristic and, like, not understanding why they're following orders so, like, closely and so to the T. And I feel like that's just a difference in, like, that's how they were raised. Like, they are from Atlas, that is a very, like, controlled, like, state. So I feel like that's something we're just, like, not used to and can't, like, fully relate to, even though it makes sense for, like, who they are.
Well, yeah, it's also supposed to be like a fish out of water type experience, because the only person that is used to the way that Atlas runs in the group is Weiss.
And she's the one who wanted to leave.
Exactly.
She wanted to leave, she wanted to get out, and we've even, like, in the earlier volumes, we see Weiss be very, like, you know, proper and organized and everything like that. But, like, we've seen her change and open up more. But like we haven't seen that for the Aesops, and I think the only exception to this are like Team Funky, and that's it.
I always forget that Team Funky is from Atlas.
Yeah, like they made that joke at the tournament because they're like they're gonna be like, you know, Weiss is like, oh, they're from Atlas, so they're gonna be organized and planned and orderly, and then it's just Cat Girl and Fancy Flute Boy.
Don't diss Flint Cole.
Oh,
he is one of my favorites.
I mean, I like his YouTube channel, but
but anyways, there's one last theory that I want to, like, you know, pass by you, and then that's probably going to be the post show. Because again, the post show is going to be shorter than the normal episodes. It's like, you know, something you can listen to just when you're, like, you know, driving in the car for, like, I don't know, to get like coffee or Taco Bell or something. I don't know. Anyways, final theory we're going over. When Crunchyroll was when they were advertising a previous season, it was a season where they were in what was it? At Haven Academy. You know that's part where Weiss gets impaled by one of Cinder's spears?
Yeah.
So people are saying that Crunchyroll foreshadowed that because in the promotional art for that, they had the W in RWBY broken.
Yeah.
For the upcoming Volume 8, the B in RWBY, which represents Blake, is sliced in half. People are theorizing that this means either Blake is going to get a serious injury this coming volume, or she's going to die. What are your thoughts?
I feel like because, like, RWBY is theoretically planned to last a long time, right?
The idea, I
feel like
believe
the
it was like
same
double digits for the volumes.
I feel like the same logic of, like, they couldn't just kill off one of the main characters like that. I mean, they could, but it's not RWBY anymore. As far as I know, we don't have another B to fill in RWBY.
Bon, Bora, fucking Bosker. There you go.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear any of that.
I can cut it out.
I want to. You don't have to cut it out. Just I'm not going to care.
Yeah. Well.
I'm
editing.
Anyway. I think I haven't seen the image, so I don't know like how exactly it's cut in half, and you don't have to explain it to me. But I'm going to imagine it will have to do with like a split personality. Or like
split personality.
Not like schizophrenia split personality, but like in terms of like she'll be given like a crossroads and she's going to be split like down both ways. Like she might have let's say like loyalties to like keep working with Team RWBY, but maybe something will come up with like the Faunus discrimination in Atlas, let's say, or something to do with like the Schnee Dust Company, and we'll have like revenge fueling like another objective. That's what I'm imagining.
So like we'll go back to what's it, Menagerie is the name of it?
Kinda, yeah. Because like one of the things I know people have been complaining about with RWBY is the fact that the whole like Faunus discrimination thing has kind of been like downplayed a lot, because there's all of this like, you know, abuse and slavery and like, you know, second class citizen stuff, but like there was in like volume 5 all they really did to show that was they had a no Faunus sign, and Menagerie didn't really like have a ton of it, just like, oh, the White Fang is bad, just justifying why people wouldn't like the Faunus.
Okay, so just as a quick, like, on-the-fly correction, so the slash through the B was actually for the Volume 7, like, now streaming kind of preview thing.
Oh.
And that was the same thing, though, that happened in with Volume 5's promo, and then I believe the injury happened in the next volume. I just sent you the pictures.
Oh, so that's just completely irrelevant.
Well, the thing is that it was accurate to the next volume with the Volume 5, because they like put that out after the Volume 5 like finale was out, and then Volume 6 I believe was when Weiss got stabbed. I'm not sure. Corey, fact check.
Well, yeah, but that like it doesn't have to do with Volume 7 though.
Yeah. Well, again, like it referred to like that slash for the W when Weiss got injured in the next volume. They were all like, oh, Crunchyroll gave us a hint.
Well, she got stabbed in Volume 5, though.
Was it Volume 5?
Yeah, Weiss was impaled at the end of Volume 5, and I remember that because nobody liked the finale of Volume 5 because they, did the final fight over the course of, 2 or 3 episodes. And people complained about the continuity in the mise-en-scène that was apparently terrible.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm confused, though, that they would have it be, slashed or whatever for that, promo, a stylistic type thing.
I guess it's just for style, and not any kind of, meaning. Because, even, it's the exact same format. They both have, what looks like flaky snow in the background, but Volume 5 didn't have any snow. So I'm assuming that's just, a motif they're going with. I'm actually curious if someone were to, ask, the art team, or whatever, about, the slash through the W and Weiss getting impaled, how much of a connection there is, or if that's just purely coincidental.
Yeah.
Because people thought that meant Weiss would die, but then people were like, well, you can't just get rid of a quarter of the, namesake.
Since we're, kind of, talking about, the main... Nobody from the main cast of the main 4 could, die, feasibly, with the way the show is. I want to make a prediction for next volume.
What?
Not one of the main cast of RWBY, Weiss, Blake, or Yang. None of them are going to get maybe they'll get injured. They won't die. Someone from the remaining Team Juniper will bite the bullet, and I think it's going to be Ren.
You think?
Because Ren, you can see how his ideals are shifting to not match the rest of the group. He's always been very, a stickler for the rules and everything. A very serious character. But with the way that he was acting, where Ironwood would ask are you with me or not, he just goes yes sir and salutes.
Yeah. And
how him and Nora, even though they shared the kiss during the volume, they're very much on the rocks. And it's slowly going to be them drifting further and further and further apart, to the point where something bad's going to happen to Ren. Ren's either going to die or have a bad, this horrible injury, and Nora's going to constantly blame herself for it. And the team will slowly start to unravel from there. I don't think Team Juniper as a whole, well, obviously because, Pura, I don't think them as a whole is going to are going to exist at the end of the series.
Yeah.
That's just what I think. Personally, I want Rooster Teeth to just go crazy and kill off one of the main characters. That would be insane of them to do. For a lot of people that they would make probably drop the series. But I'd love to see how they would go about it.
I'm on the fence with that, because as much as I love main characters and popular characters dying, as a fan of the first few seasons of Game of Thrones,
yeah, you know the pain all too well.
It just, I I don't know if they could justifiably kill off a main character without it just being, like, for the shock value. Like...
What if they did it in the sense of, like, them sacrificing themselves for the rest of the group? Like, not like a, oh, he slipped, now his head's gone, like, something kind of thing. Like,
even
it's more
then,
of them...
like, that would just... Like, that to me would just feel like a repeat of Pyrrha. Because they've already established that, like, she knew she wasn't going to make it out and she was making a sacrifice. So, like, I don't want them to abuse that kind of a motif. Like, the only thing I want to see out of Team Juniper is... I want to see, something come up with Ren and Nora again. Especially between two things. One, Ren's weird, like, Zen Ren state that, like, was teased at least twice and never brought up. And the fact that, like, Ren clearly has some kind of internal problem with his relationship with Nora. Because first you have their kiss, which is when, like, they let their guards down and in their minds probably believe they, like, were the reason people died at that rally. And then Ren hesitated when Neo disguised herself as Nora and he couldn't bring himself to attack her, even though he knew that was Neo.
And he was, like,
and, like, we
crying.
saw him crying as, like, they were running. Like, I want to see that play out as, like, its own full arc.
I could see that, like, being very important over the next volume. I don't think that's something that they would just bring up and push under the rug,
like,
although they've done that before.
Like, what if, Ren ends up fighting, Neo again, but, like, he does so in his Zen state where he doesn't, like, let his emotions take control, and thus making any kind of disguise, like, impossible to get through Ren.
Like, she tries to transform into Nora and give him the same face, and he just punches her?
Yeah, because he's not letting, like, his love necessarily, like, take control and, like, make him hesitate. Because he'll just know, like, this person, this thing is what I'm after.
Damn.
And he'll be more, like, calculative. Because that's, like, been his whole thing, like, hiding his emotions. And that's exactly what she was manipulating in that fight.
I can definitely see that. Like being important. Jeez. Dude, there's so many, like, things, like, this show can go in so many directions right now.
I also, I have one more thing to say as, like, an original thought, and then we can, like, wrap it up. You mentioned how, and, like, I destroyed it with facts and logic. You brought up that, like, Ironwood might be under, like, Watt's control since he's, like, part robotic.
Yeah.
The one other thing that makes me think that that wouldn't be the case is I feel like we would know if Ironwood got hacked, because as far as we know, and we have no reason to believe otherwise, his robotic arm is controlled by his brain through, like, the little chip thing on, like, his brow. But I don't think it would work the other way. At most, I think his arm could be, like, deactivated, maybe, or maybe Watts could even, like, take control of it, but Ironwood would be aware that he's out of it, that, like, it's out of his control.
Imagine just, like, in the middle of their fight, Watts just uses one of his rings and takes control of his hand, and his hands just start slapping him in the face.
Like, I feel like he would have used, and here's, like, I feel like he would have used Ironwood's arm against him in that fight, because that was basically a fight to the death.
Yeah. Even though they didn't fucking kill him.
So, I like to think that the reason he didn't do it is because he can't, because it's a sort of, like, closed circuit of, like, only his brain, like, is able to control it, because it's, like, too directly wired. But yeah. I don't know about Penny, though, and I wonder if they're going to, like, play into that ever. If maybe, like, her having a soul, as we know, like, she was given a part of her creator's soul, like, we know that, like, that's playing a big, like, part of it. Maybe
that's
like,
how she got the maiden powers, too, is that she has that human soul.
So, like, maybe she is also immune because of, like, the human, like, humanity aspect.
But also, like, what if Watts takes control of her and now Salem technically has a new maiden?
That would be, like, that would be assuming she could get hacked, which we're not sure yet. I'm not going to say she can't, but we don't know for sure if she can. Because, like, what if it's not, like, technically code and it's running off of, like, the humanity she was given?
I feel like it's a good thing that we talked about all of this in a separate video, because now we're at 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be the short post show, too.
I mean, compared to the other episode, it's way shorter.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's
I mean, you
half
had a lot of things to say about Warcraft 3, which, again, if you want to listen to that full episode, link in the description.
And this time, you can't hate me for having the unpopular opinion.
Yeah. Other than that, yeah, this has been the first official post show. These aren't going to be like a normal thing. It's only going to be if there's something specific in the podcast that we want to, like, talk more detail about, or if there's, like, a very specific thing that we want to shine some light on. And, like, it also gives us the opportunity to talk about things that we weren't able to get to in, like, a normal recording of the podcast. Because these are going to be a little bit more laid back. It's not going to have, like, a lot of the crazy edits that we normally do. It's mainly just supposed to be, like, an audio type thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anything, it's also, like, a nice little chill, kind of laid back, like, not needing to worry too much about doing too much with it. I'll make new assets, though, like, just that, you know, it's not the same screen.
Yeah.
But, yeah, other than that, thank you for listening to the first episode of the Post Show. I've been Corey. And I don't know how to respond. And we'll see you on the next normal episode.
See ya.
Nice.
Have fun with that cough.
I'm just going to have, like, my face glare at you.